Does creativity matter for creators? Is that going to help determine your success? So today's topic may actually sound simple, but it's actually not. So make sure you've got your coffee in hand, because we're about to travel down a wormhole that's going to keep you thinking for a while. Andrew Perrin, Andrew Wall, beside me as always. AWOL, do you remember that classic Corey Hart 80s hit, I Wear My Sunglasses at Night?
I do. And last night I wore my sunglasses at night. By the way, I have a Trenta cold brew. I think that means it's 30 ounces of coffee. Good morning, everyone. So yesterday we did a podcast talking about curb appeal for live streams, right? So we talked about all the logic stuff, all the strategy stuff, even some of the technique behind it. But then we touched a little bit on the what you'd call more creative elements of producing a live stream to be successful. And so I was inspired. So I decided to do some things I used to do 10 years ago when I was a full-time live streamer, give myself a little bit of curb appeal, and come up with a clever title for my live stream. So I'm an expert on all the technical elements of creating content, and I make videos about that. But what I lack often are the creative elements, because I focus so much on the ground game and so much on the technicals. And so 80% of what makes creators successful, in my opinion, is the technicals in the ground game. But that 20% of creativity is what pushes you over the edge and can help you grow exponentially. So what I did last night is I mean, it's simple, right? Instead of just being random dude in my studio just playing a game, I threw up my green screen, I improved my lighting, I put on a pair of sunglasses, and I made myself super huge on the screen for my stream. Then, instead of doing a title for my live stream that said something like the name of the game and XYZ thing I'm doing in the game, I went ahead and Googled the top 200 most catchy billboards of all time. And I went ahead and looked at some great headlines and great eye-catching billboards that were made by, let's say masterclass marketers over the last decades. And so I pulled some of those for inspiration. And the title of my stream was probably the best stream in the world. And I tripled my viewership by making just two creative decisions. Putting on sunglasses so that I looked different than just a normal guy. And also my new lights in my studio are insanely bright. And number two, I just made a creative title for my live stream that differed from everyone else's. So the point of this is the fundamentals, the technicals can get you 80% the way there, but you can't necessarily start growing a lot of the time, especially in a space like live streaming, unless you have that creative element, unless you really think and put effort into that creative element. And I was really inspired by our conversation yesterday, and it worked instantly. But it took maybe about an hour of introspection for me to kind of realize that about myself. What are your thoughts on that, Perrin?
I think that the creative aspect of it, when we're filled with so much competition, the technicals are there. Like you could do what you're doing on YouTube and succeed easy. Like you already are, and you're growing there. But in order to separate what separates us from this pack of creators, that's there's just so many. It's definitely oversaturated. It's an oversaturated field for sure. And that 20%, I think you can still make it with even without that creativity. You can kind of make it. It might take longer, but we're not going to be in that area for long. We're going to eventually get to this point, maybe even soon, where that creative element is going to be required to stand out from the crowd. This comes down to like advertising essentials too, right? With so many people out there marketing themselves as creators, how do you stand out from the pack? What makes you iconic and unique that someone will click? How are you getting your content in front of more eyeballs, which is the first argument for advertising, right? How are you doing that? What is that looking like? And what actually, if you were to put your stream in a mix of like 200 other thumbnails or like a Where's Waldo type thing, how would they know to pick you? What would make you stand out from all of the rest of them? This is like advertising 101 to me. I mean, having enough creativity, having the right message to draw someone in versus everybody else. As creators, you are advertisers. You need to market yourself successfully. In order to do so, you're going to have to be more creative than the other people who are trying to do this job.
That makes sense. And so I think spending time systematically to sit down and go through the creative process to come up with better titles, better thumbnails, better video concepts is critical. And so I think a big problem here is that a lot of people think being creative means creating things. And sure, that's related, but I don't think that's necessarily the case. And so we were discussing this before the podcast, but if there's a machine that has a mold to make a toy, and the machine makes 100 of those toys today, was that machine creative? No, right? Like it just did the thing. It's a freaking machine. But Perrin, I think what you were saying is that, well, the person that came up with the mold and came up with the concept that then they put into the machine, that person was creative. And so I think a lot of the time, folks out there that are streaming, they're editing, they're doing graphic design, they think that by making things, they're being creative, but that's not necessarily what we're talking about. 80%, like the machine that actually makes the toy in this analogy is 80%. That's your fundamentals. Those are your skills. Those are your technicals. Those are your overall strategy. The 20% of thought that went into designing that toy in this analogy, and then coming up with the idea that you were going to do it, that's the part that's the real secret sauce that we need to focus on systematically as creators to really succeed. And in order to do that, you need to cut time out of your day every single day where it is quiet, where there's not a bunch of noise happening around you, and you can just think. It's really important so that you can actually use your brain power and use your bandwidth to actually focus on creative things. And so if you guys are able to cut out just 15 minutes a day to have quiet time, to just write down creative ideas, or to do research without any videos playing in your face or anything like that, to do research on creative ideas for your videos, look at what other people are doing to get inspiration, look at websites, look at articles to get inspiration on what you should be doing, and just write down the things that you saw that you just thought were cool and inspire you. 15 minutes a day. Pretty soon you'll have a very long list of items that you can pull from that can help you increase your creativity and can help you be inspired by others and take something that somebody else did that was great, twist it, put your own creative twist on it, and then do that yourself. And that's how you can systematically be creative so that you're not just focusing on being a machine all the time. And all those live streamers out there that have 0 viewers right now, something like 12 million live streamers that are streaming right now that have 0 viewers right now on all these platforms. Currently, you are a machine. You are only doing the 80%, which is executing the live streaming. The thing you are missing is the creative element that's going to help you punch through and get from 0 viewers to 3, to 5, to 10, to 100, etc. And that's why the big guys at the top, Dr. Disrespect, the big guys at the top that have these creative elements, he's just one example. I think he's fantastic. That have these creative elements in their stream. He's like the best.
Yeah.
Have these creative elements in their stream are breaking through and you are not. Summit is another example. It's not just because he was an esports player. It's because he comes up with super creative and fun things to do in his stream every day. Okay? That's what's pushing them over the edge. And like Perrin said a moment ago, and I'll pass it over to Ross here to get your thoughts. The bar in terms of technicals keeps going up, 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 up. And that's all anybody talks about. Have great alerts, have great video quality, have a great audio quality. But what about that bar in terms of creativity? With tens of millions of people in the game here, that's a lot of brains coming up with a lot of creative ideas. You have to surpass those people and be more creative than them. So that has to become a part of your daily process. Ross, what are your thoughts?
In a way, I kind of disagree with you there. So this is going to be interesting. I don't think you necessarily need to surpass other people. I think you just need to surpass yourself. I think you need to set the bar. When you're in a field where you're competing with 12 million other people, you're not going to win. There's just no way around it. The odds of this is like trying to win the lottery and stuff like that. So what I would do is I would take the 12 million people out of the competition and make the competition with yourself, where every stream you try and come up with something more creative to do. Because if you're holding yourself to the level of 12 million other creators, it's gonna fry your brain completely. You're not gonna be able. How do I word this? Essentially, you're going to lose momentum because you're going to see, oh well, that was a creative idea. Why can't I think of that? Oh, that was another creative. Why couldn't I think of that? So when you're holding yourself to the standard of everybody else, people who have been in the game a lot longer, people who might simply be more creative, have a better imagination than you. Like that doesn't win. That doesn't do anything for your personal motivation and your inspiration to keep going. But if you're competing against yourself on a stream by stream basis, like AWOL, like yesterday, like last night you did the sunglasses, like tonight, maybe I don't know, wear a dress or something. I'm just.
I'll do that. That's a great idea. I'm writing that down.
Dress and sunglasses. But the thing is, top yourself. I think competition is good, but competing against 12 million other people, there's guaranteed to be people a lot more creative and with a much better imagination than you. So yeah, my personal thought is compete with yourself.
That's great. Yeah, always try to improve your own creativity. That's all you have in your control, right? Is to try to constantly evolve and refresh and constantly stay inspired and make that a part of your daily process. I agree. So I think being better than everyone else is not a realistic goal, for sure. I agree with that. But to Perrin's point a moment ago, you need to be better than, and I say better, but it is better, yes. You need to be better than the people that are in the cluster of maybe streams or videos or blogs or podcasts that you're in, because it is a competition. It's not just a competition with yourself. It's a competition with other people for eyeballs and for clicks. If they're like Perrin said, if there's 10 live streams there for the game that you're playing in the section that you're in there, you have to take the click away from your competitors. There's not enough clicks for everybody, okay? There just aren't. That's just the way it is. That's why so many streamers are streaming to 0 people. There's not enough clicks for everybody. So you have to take clicks away from competitors in order for those to be your clicks. You have to take viewers away from other streams in order for those to become your viewers. So I think you also have to view creativity as a tool for competition in this space. It truly is. Just like TV shows. When these executive producers are coming, fielding scripts or concepts, and they have 100 pitches come in a particular day. Those are creative people coming up with creating things and then pitching them to the executive producers so that they can choose the best show to compete with the other networks. It's all competition.
Right, well, and they're thinking of TV shows.
What's that?
There aren't 12 million other TV shows on though.
That's true. I agree. So the competition is let's say the competition is much higher on the internet. That's true. But given that all of the creative elements are in your control and you can completely change what you do from day to day, that also gives you the versatility to change out from day to day. So today I could dress up in a Spider-Man suit and play Spider-Man on PS4. See if that works.
Please do.
Tomorrow I could dress I will. Tomorrow I could dress up as a cyberpunk guy and have laser lights on my face and have insane cyberpunk music playing in the background. I could do whatever I want every day. Whereas TV shows have to be exactly what they are. And they either win or fail with exactly what they are. And so that's the advantage that I think a lot of our viewers have and a lot of creators out there have, is that you can constantly experiment, especially in the early phases before you're starting to get traction on your channel and with your content, to figure out what works. And that's why we encourage you guys, when you have no viewers or low viewers, do anything at all. Do crazy stuff. Don't think that you know what's going to work, because you literally don't know what's going to work. What are your thoughts, Perrin?
I think it's all about how you apply creativity. So don't look at creativity as I've got to add bells and whistles. I've got to be flashy. I've got to be flashier than everybody else. I have to be more of a showman than everybody else. Sometimes creativity doesn't work like that. Sometimes it's creative problem solving on how you're looking at your competition and solving the problem. I'll provide a loose example here. So I stream Star Citizen, and Star Citizen is a visually enticing game. It's got great visuals. It's a good screenshot generator, I guess, of a game. It's a really pretty flight simulator. And a lot of streams have all these bells and whistles. In fact, there's one streamer who has 16 different screens. He's got strobe lights, disco lights. He plays movie sound effects. There's stuff all over the screen. But he's not the top viewed stream. by a large shot. Some of the top viewed streamers have barely anything on their stream. And what they do is they bring you in the game. They'll actually talk with their personality through their Star Citizen character. They have something called voice over IP, which you can talk and your character moves their mouth and the sound comes out in game. So it looks like the streamer is the character. You can actually simplify your creativity and maybe your creativity is how to be simpler, cleaner, and have a better interface so that people can actually enjoy the visuals of the game. And that's your appeal. If you look at, it's not just looking at you as a creative person, it's looking at what your audience is looking for and being creative on how you're solving what they're demanding and being creative on how you're understanding your audience development, this should be a skill for every marketer and every creator is audience development, understanding who you're streaming to and what they like, what their interests are, and what they want from streams that they're watching. How are you creatively applying that to your stream? So if one of the demands of Star Citizen viewers is, I want to watch streams where I can see how amazing this game looks. So in that case, you need to have less bells and whistles on your stream, or you need to be very frequently be removing them from your stream interface so that everybody can get a good idea or they can just see the game and like all of its glory because maybe that's what they want. That's just one example, right? You have to think outside of the box with creativity. It's not all bells and whistles. It's not all special effects and gimmicks where I'm dressing up and doing special things to myself so that I look more flashy than somebody else. That's a really linear way of sometimes thinking about creativity. Sometimes you can be more creative than other people by doing something totally that they aren't doing at all. And that can be something creative too. So I didn't want this to be a stream where we're like, dress up and do all that stuff. Cause I see lots of streams like that. And for me as a stream viewer, I like, man, this is going to turn into, I can see this 5 years from now where people are like getting up and dancing with bells just to get everyone's attention to watch their stream. And it's getting ridiculous, basically, to a point where it's not even entertaining. It's just ridiculous. So it can only go so far in that direction. You have to apply creativity in multiple different ways and think about it. I think the best people are the ones who are able to think outside of the box with their creativity and do something particularly unique. That's also the most challenging thing to do.
I love that. That was great. Thank you for saying that. So creativity is not just additive. You don't just add things on top of what you're already doing to make it more creative. You can also subtract things from what you're doing and simplify. And the same thing is the case in culture and in art over time. When you see things like futurism or minimalism, and you see things go through waves, right? Same thing you see in music too. You'll see for certain eras, 5 to 8 years, where music becomes incredibly complicated. Pop music becomes incredibly complicated from a production standpoint. And then the new hot thing after that is incredibly minimal beats and incredibly minimal everything. And so then now that's the hot thing. And so it's all about contrasting yourself a lot of the time, like you're saying, contrasting yourself with what other people are doing out there. That can be the creative spark. And that, you're right, that doesn't mean putting freaking lasers and pew-pews everywhere all the time. It could mean maybe just having the cleanest, most simple and easy to watch looking stream out of everybody. When everybody is banging cowbells and shooting lasers, you're chill and you're super clean. That is a creative decision. You're right. That can make a huge impact. So I like that a lot. Ross, you post so much freaking content. You are literally a machine. So how do you balance, the grind of being a content machine like you are, like a killer machine from the future is what you are, really, here to kill. Anyway,
he's the Terminator.
He's the Terminator of Twitter. He's the Twitter Terminator. He's the Twitter Terminator. How do you balance going into machine mode like that, like you do, just scheduling out hundreds of pieces of content on the weekend, to then being able to come up with your own memes and your own content and be able to kind of snap out of it, if you will, and then go into a fresh creative mode? Because those are two very different mindsets, right?
Yeah, completely different mindsets. And it kind of goes back to what you said earlier. This goes back to when I was in comedy and had to write a lot of comedy and stuff like that. You can turn on music and go through and consolidate memes and stuff like that, throw them into Buffer. You don't need creativity to do that. But when it comes to actually sitting down and creating content, the way my process is just like you said. I turn off anything that has language, meaning TV, any music that has actual lyrics, anything like that, anything that could influence me from an outside perspective. Now, I do listen to a lot of classical music when I write and stuff like that. But there is something to be said about just clearing your head, like you said, Haywall, and just letting your creativity flow. And that's something that it takes a time or 2 or 3 or 4 to get used to being in that mindset, just because throughout our entire lives, we don't experience that anymore. Everywhere we go, we're being influenced by something. If you have your TV on in the background, you're like, well, I wasn't watching it. Well, subconsciously, you were still picking up on everything that it said. So that can absolutely influence you. So for me to get into that creative space, it's literally exactly how you said it. Eliminate all distractions and focus. Even if it's just 15 minutes a day, I typically do about 30 minutes a day. But yeah, it's literally just focus and eliminating all distractions. And you will be so surprised at how creative you can actually be. It's actually a really good boost of confidence.
Man, that's great. I mean, it's tough to do for creators out there, especially social media managers like you guys, where you have nonstop notifications, email, Slack messages, what have you. And this goes into one of our mental health episodes. Actually, I have it pinned right now toward the top of our Twitter account. Mm-hmm. How can you stay sane in the age of social media? If you're trying to succeed on social media, you need to step away from it at a certain point. Yeah. It's like the Death Star. When you look down that corridor and when the Death Star shoots its beams and just like anything's annihilated in its path, you're standing right in the middle of that whenever you're looking at your social feed in terms of creativity. There's nothing else. You're completely overwhelmed. You need to step away. You need to just chill. You just take a walk around the block and don't talk to anyone and listen to anything. It really makes a huge impact. It really does. So here's the other question. Can you succeed with virtually no creativity? This is a question I want to ask you guys. What I mean by that is you just kind of look at what other people do and you just copy them. Is that a strategy that could just be successful?
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Why not?
For sure.
I mean,
in business all the time.
Yeah. Go ahead, Perrin. You go first.
Oh, sorry. We're talking over each other. I just really agreeing with you, Russ. We see it in business all the time. It depends on your measure of success, I guess. You're not going to be number 1, but you can certainly make lots of money being number 2 or number 3 by copying number 1. And there's so many instances of that in business and brands, and marketing, and with creators too, already.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Like I said, and you may actually be able to overtake number 1 at some point just by being consistent. If you're more consistent and you put out more content than the number 1 person, you very easily could surpass them. But it's like you said, Perrin, how do you define success? You can define success by being a machine and copying what other people are doing and stuff like that, but you're never going to fulfill that itch. I don't think you're really ever going to be satisfied. And I think satisfaction plays a huge role in success. If you aren't satisfied, if you're not using your brain, if you're not using yourself to the best ability possible, it doesn't necessarily matter if you're number 2 or number 3, because you're still not going to feel successful. So yes, the answer is you can be successful you can be successful without being creative if you define success in that particular way. If you don't consider inner fulfillment to be part of success, and sure, yeah, you can be successful. And I'm not knocking anybody who's like that. I think that's awesome. I wish I wasn't.
That makes sense. I mean, yeah, there's the three things you have to fulfill, right? The numbers, the growth, the audience, the notoriety, the financial, and then the emotional fulfillment. And if you don't care about the emotional fulfillment and you just want to get numbers and money, don't stop listening to this podcast as soon as I tell you this. Take that out of the equation. Just copy the top guys, do exactly what they're doing, and you'll get the numbers and you'll get the money. Go. Who cares? If you're a sociopath, go do it. Go live your best sociopath life. I'm just kidding. You don't have to get emotional fulfillment out of this industry if you don't want it, but it's a really good point. And you have to sacrifice one category for the other. Guys, I think we've covered this for the most part. Are there any other tips we can think of to help our audiences be more creative as a creator, like very specific things we've done or do that can help inspire them here in the last few minutes of the podcast?
Yeah, have faith that you can be creative. Don't let the best of you, don't let, going and seeing all these other streams, all these successful people, all those other successful social media accounts all those people that, may inspire you to do better. But at the same time, when you're watching them, be careful that you're not getting to yourself. Be careful that you're not letting their creativity knock you down a notch, because you can be creative. Everybody has it in them. That's just the bottom line.
It's okay to look at others for creativity and creative inspiration, but at the end of the day, remove yourself from those. Well, as you were saying, take yourself away from that creativity and from focusing on them. Allow yourself time with yourself. Go take a walk. Go just separate from it so that your mind can come up with its own things. Yeah, it might be influenced by others that you've seen, but if you're sitting there watching other YouTubers and you're trying to be creative in your own way while watching them, it's going to be really, really challenging to do. So give yourself the space, find your creative outlet, find what allows your mind to work creatively. And that can be challenging. You might have to try lots of different things to find what works for you. Once you do, take note of it and reapply it every day.
Ross, take us out of here, man. Get us out of here.
Get us out of here. All right, everybody, have a good weekend. By the way, this will be up on YouTube later on today. You can go listen, or later on today. It will be up. It'll be up soon, but you can go actually listen on iTunes. Give us that 5-star rating. Like Abe always says, we have like thousands of listeners and like 12 ratings. Such goes the way of iTunes.
It makes me so sad. Like, why haven't you given us 5 stars? Are we not good enough? Guilt trip. How come you don't call anymore?
Yeah. You never write us letters. You never send us text. What happened? We miss you. Anyway, have a good weekend. We'll see you guys later.